Hi, everyone. So I'm just waiting for our guests to log on, and then we'll get started on tonight's special edition of Late Night with Chaya. We're actually going to be talking to an independent filmmaker, definitely something that is a new world for me, I guess you could say. I've been live streaming for a little over 2 years now, and it's been an amazing ride just sharing, right? Like it started out as this like video documented journey of what it's like to be a mom healer and entrepreneur. And along the way, I realized, oh my gosh, like people are actually listening and getting inspired by some of the stuff that I'm sharing. And eventually it turned into its own little show. And even my kids started asking, are you doing Late Night with Chaya? So this year I was like, you know what, let's upgrade this a bit. So this has become like the little logo look theme of Late Night with Chaya. So honestly, this is a candid behind the scenes of being an entrepreneur and living life. And so I feel so honored that tonight we're going to be talking to this man, Mr. Mark Gordon, who is an independent filmmaker, and I will be bringing him on. So, yeah, I'm excited to ask some questions, and then hopefully we can get some live viewers asking questions, so it's not just me, but you guys know I love to talk. So let me go ahead and maneuver through here. Hey, Mark, you made it.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So we have a couple of people watching, and I'll try to monitor the screen if people have questions. But I'd love to start with, like, I know you have no idea what Late Night with Chaya is about. I kind of like threw it on you last minute. So I just want to give you a little background story real quick, and then I'll ask you some questions. Deal?
Great.
All right. So since you're a filmmaker, you might appreciate this. I, 2 years ago, decided to come out of my shell because I used to make YouTube videos and people were really mean in their comments with the videos. That I stopped making YouTube videos for about 6 years. So I went on a 6-year hiatus, and I was like, I'm never doing that stuff again. And then I happened to be in a group of entrepreneurs that were like, Chaya, like, you're such an inspiration. You have all these stories. Like, people could really benefit from hearing some of the insights you have. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And so after months of them going, like, just do it. Like, I'm like, but I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. They're like, talk about whatever. Like, just get comfortable being in front of the camera again. I was like, okay. And so eventually I found myself in a rhythm of doing these videos at night because kids were in bed. I didn't have to deal with clients, right? Like I had already been done with being the entrepreneur. And then I was like, if I could bring one message to the world, I want more people to heal, like heal from past stories, past traumas. And so the slogan really became like, this is behind the scenes of what it's like to be a mom healer and entrepreneur. Here we are 2 years later, and I'm all stoked because I just showed the audience. I was like, look at what I've done. Like I've actually like have my little name in the bottom now, like the lower thirds, and I'm learning that you can bring in graphics and all this stuff. So it's a new world for me, right? And with that being said, when you said, yeah, let's do this, I was like, yay, I get to bring on a guest and actually interview them live. So
Great.
With all that being said, Mark, welcome to the conversation. Why don't you tell the audience and myself a little bit about what got you into the film industry, like becoming an independent filmmaker?
Well, thanks for having me here, and thanks for asking. And I grew up in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley, and my family and all of our neighbors were in the film industry. And when I was in third grade, my best friend's parents bought him a bunch of camera equipment. And until we graduated from college, we made films together. So when I was 10 years old, if you asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I would have said I want to direct films. And I have an uncle who was a producer in Hollywood in the 30s, and he produced, his name is Philip Krasny, and he produced the Cisco Kid movies and the TV series and Gunsmoke. Probably none of your audience knows what those old movies are, but I grew up in the film industry, and I went to film school, and and then I got into marketing and design for a long time, and about 10 years ago, I found this book called Edge of Taos Desert by Mabel Dodge Lujan. And it was all about New Mexico. She had moved from New York, from Greenwich Village to Taos, New Mexico, and married a full-blooded Tiwa Indian named Tony Lujan. And it was just a fascinating story. And I spent the next 5 years of my life becoming an independent filmmaker. And during the production, I was introduced to Tony Lujan's great grandson, Blue Spruce Standing Deer, and he became intimately involved with the film. And his life was really interesting to me. And so he's an artist, and he's a medicine carrier, a medicine person, and he's you know. A shaman, and he's just an amazing guy. So we're making a film about him now called Man of Many Colors. Does that address your question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So did you, I mean, like you said, your friend, like, you know, you were little kids, like your little kids exploring this equipment basically. Um, did you know at that point when you were a little kid, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a filmmaker?
Yeah. And I wasn't for there was a number of years when I wasn't making films. I had a design and marketing business in Monterey County, California, and all throughout the Central Coast, I had clients. But every once in a while, I would get an opportunity to direct a PSA or a video or tourism video or food safety video. And I was just really, really happy doing that. And I had a friend who I went to high school with who became the president of RCA Records and the president of Geffen Records. And I went and visited him one time, and he was just doing what he wanted to do. And I just thought, you know, I need to do that. And I had to have some heart surgery when I was about 56, and I wasn't making films. And at the end of the surgery, I realized that I had been given a second chance, and that I almost died, and I didn't. And I realized that I better do what I really love doing. So here I am exploring the life of an independent filmmaker. The last film was picked up by PBS and is being broadcast in about 100 markets, major markets in the US. And we're hoping to do something similar with this. We won a number of awards. We went to film festivals. And right now, the film I'm interested in deals a lot with Native American subjects, and it's Indigenous Peoples Day, which we celebrate because that was the day that that the indigenous people discovered Columbus.
Right, right. You know,
Much to
I
their
was
chagrin.
interesting. I had made a post earlier, right? Because I had heard the term for the first time last year, Indigenous People Day, and I was like, I'm cool with that. Like, I think that would be, you know, honoring a tradition. And then I was surprised how many people were not okay with that. They're very like, no, it's Columbus Day. No, history says it's this. So where, let's get a little controversial here for a minute. Where do
Yeah.
you lie in this, what's your view of how there is this divide?
Well, I think history, or his story or her story, needs to be told from both perspectives. We have this basically a propaganda machine. We came to this country. The Indians had all the land, the Native Americans, the American Indians, whatever you call them, um, and they were already here, and they had been living here for thousands of years, perfectly fine without us, without Christianity. And the Spanish came in and brutalized them, and
Yeah.
terrorized them, and conquered them, and it was not very humane. We basically stole the land from them, and then we tried to obliterate their culture. And the film that I'm working on right now is about a Native American from Taos Pueblo in New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
who was his father was a medicine person, and he was going to follow in his footsteps, but the Bureau of Indian Affairs lured him to California, to Silicon Valley from Taos, New Mexico. And instead of becoming a medicine person, he was taught how to be a welder. And 18 years later, the spirit of his tribe called to him, and that it was time for him to come home, to return to his ways. And so his challenge was to reconcile his cultural and tribal ways with life in the 21st century. So my standpoint about it is that we've tried to eliminate them, we've demonized them, and they're beautiful, beautiful people. They have a model of where man's place is on the planet. And honestly, if more of us adopted that, we would have less trouble with our climate change, instead of trying to dominate and exploit the planet. And the native indigenous viewpoint is that we're part of nature. We're not here to change things. We're here to steward and nurture Mother Nature. And so I think that viewpoint, which is something which is a main point of our film, is that there's another story out there that we've hammered down. We made them cowboys and Indians, and the Indians were the savages, but the real savages were the Spanish, who came and slaughtered them. I mean, there's a tribe here in New Mexico that when the Spanish arrived, they cut the right leg, the right foot off of all the males of all ages. Can you imagine, in the time before medicine or crutches or prosthetics, what that did? That was just unbelievably cruel and inhumane. So I'm on board with Indigenous Peoples Day. I think we have a lot to learn from them. And right now, with the pandemic, we're losing the elders at an alarming rate.
Wow. And I know that you have, and we'll come back to this again in a little bit, but I know that you're raising, you have a crowdfunding going on for this next film, right?
Yes.
I will post.
do.
I will post it in the comments. I'm going to see if I can access it from my phone, but I'll post it in the comments before the stream is out. Tell us a little bit about this crowdfunding campaign.
Do you have somewhere where you could put it on? Do you have the link to put on the screen?
So we have if you look on your screen, there's a section that says comments. You can post it there, and then I can copy and post it to where it's being streamed. All right, so he's going to go do that for a minute. Just know that while you're doing this, Mark, we can't hear you, and then I'll bring you back into the stream. All right, so we're talking tonight with Mr. Mark Gordon, who's an independent filmmaker who I'm just like so excited to have him tonight because for one, you know, it's we're now calling it Indigenous Peoples Day, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that. But here's the reality of it for me, okay? Here for myself being a Latina, there is a lot of tradition that's been lost over time in our culture because we were not educated in the past of what tribes we came from, right? So for me, I'm in a place in my life where I am seeking out the information and I want to know more about the indigenous cultures before quote unquote modern America. So I'm really excited to know that there are people who are dedicating their life to bringing to the forefront some of these traditions and wisdom that's being lost through the ages, right? Because I would love to be able to pass that on to my children. And in my own world, I know that a lot of my personal healing has come from using plant medicine that was used in tribes in Peru and in tribes in Mexico that I don't think I would have the level of health that I currently have if I hadn't participated in certain indigenous ceremonies. So for me, it's been part of my healing journey. So when Mark Gordon said, "Yeah, I'll come on and do an interview," and I was like, "It has to be today. Like, if there's a message I want to get out there, it has to be today. Like, of all days, like it has to be today." So he currently has a fundraising crowdfunding campaign for his second independent film. And that's what we're talking about tonight on Late Night with Chaya. And I want to bring up, I mean, it's a 1 hour, or his first film that he did was called Awakening in Taos, the Mabel Dodge Lewin story. And it has been broadcasted in PBS. It's scheduled to be broadcasted in it's scheduled to have over 900 broadcasts between now and 2021. He's an award-winning independent filmmaker at this point. And so let's see if we can bring him back on. We're trying to get him to do this post.
There you go. I disappeared. I couldn't come back.
Oh, no, I had to bring you back in. So for you to go post and do all that stuff in the private chat, it takes you out. So I had to talk about you and talk about, you know, why I was so excited to bring you on. So you were able to hear all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
All the amazing things I said about you.
Yeah, I heard. No, I was here the whole time. Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and I'll post this to the audience in the comments.
Yeah, so we're doing an Indiegogo campaign for, and I posted the link. Check it out. It's really about getting involved in doing something positive. I believe, like in being ambassadors for the solution, and I really think that, you know, I have a relationship with the main character of my film, Blue Spruce Standing Deer, and his wife Marty, White Deer Song, and I've gotten to know them over the years, and I've wanted to make this film about them for a long time. One of the things that I didn't, you know, I'm friends with him, but I'm not an expert on Native American culture, although I'm very sympathetic with it. And so in order for us to have real authenticity, we did a national search for a Native American producer to come on board so that we would have Native Americans on both sides of the camera. And we were able to find someone who lives a mile away from me. Her name is Jane Myers. She's a two-time Sundance Fellow. She's produced. She's worked on a number of major feature films. Uh, she worked on Apocalypto. She worked on The Lone Ranger. Got to know Johnny Depp, and he produced two of her films for PBS. So it's very much about not about honoring and respecting the value and the individuality of each culture, and
Yes.
right now we're in this time where there's so much disrespect and racism, and I just want to put out a story that shows Native Americans in a good life, but it also shows how as recently as 1965 the Bureau of Indian Affairs had a program to take Native Americans from their reservations and their homes and their pueblos and the land that they had grown up in, and put them in Oakland and Los Angeles and Chicago and San Jose, California, and tried to destroy the Indian culture, and it didn't work. A lot of them. There's a woman who was I believe she's a Sioux chief, a female chief named Wilma Mankiller, and they took her from Oklahoma, I believe it was Oklahoma, and they dropped her off in Oakland, California. And so after a certain amount of time, she got in her car and she drove back to Oakland with her two daughters and lived in a car, for a while there, and then eventually became the first female chief, I think, in our century. And she
Wow.
did a lot of wonderful things. She took them from abject poverty to being one of the wealthiest tribes in the country. So there's so much to be learned, and there's so much to learn, and I think that the dominant culture, the white culture, I think that if we started showing more respect and humility, we would be able to see that there's already ways for us to deal with the climate. There's ways for us to be with Mother Earth, but exploiting and dominating is not going to work. It hasn't worked too well for us. So I celebrate that we have an Indigenous People Day, and I think there's a big misnomer when they say Columbus discovered America, discovered, they had already been here. They discovered this land centuries ago and had done pretty well living here.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Going back to one of the things that I like to talk about in Late Night with Chaya is really that journey of being an entrepreneur, right? At the end of the day, entrepreneurship, there's money involved. So how do you go from I have this desire to be an artist, a producer, a director, I'm an independent filmmaker, to now I got to put on my business hat and I have to go raise money for this?
Well, it's interesting because I was unknown. It We raised $500,000 to do my first film, but it took 5 years, and I didn't know much at all about charitable giving and donations. I didn't know that people actually gave to causes that they believed in. Uh, maybe for a tax deduction, but because people wanted to make a difference. So I was very fortunate, not knowing anything about fundraising. Early on in the campaign, I met a retired fundraiser who had made millions of dollars for Ivy League schools back east, and he took pity on me, and he taught me about how to steward relationships with donors and how to fundraise. And so we have a nonprofit 501c3 fiscal agent that's our nonprofit. It's a nonprofit arts foundation, and so all the money that we collect goes through them. The donors are given a, a tax deduction and recognition, and at different levels we recognize them with either different gifts or different credits in the film. And we found that people just love being part of something exciting like making a film. That it's a great adventure, uh, and it's really a magical thing. It's magic. It just sort of comes and goes. People show up. Uh, People provide. Uh, it's really a leap of faith to say, hey, I'm just going to make this film, yeah, because it's an important story, and I resonate with it, and I think other people are going to appreciate it, and I love this. I love these people. So, so that's
So somebody took you under their wing when you did your first independent film, and
he
I think
mentored me through it. We had a number of people that were passionate about the story, and the first film has a lot to do with women's issues and modern art, and it's a very compelling mix. We had some wonderful people that collaborated with us. Uh, Ali McGraw, who is a very well-known movie star, classic movie star, was the narrator to the film. And one of the great joys about the project was that I got to know her doing the film, and build a friendship with her. And that's also part of it, is that you work with people over a long period of time and they become family. And so, what could be better than spending time with your family, working on a creative project that people are inspired and energized about, that's hopefully making a positive contribution to our world, or at least not making it worse. And like I said, we can be ambassadors for the solutions to all these problems.
so. When you talk a little bit about this concept of being an ambassador, so one of the things that I'm a big so in the world of entrepreneurship, sometimes we get to like business is about making a profit, right? And I
Hmm.
think that there is a new wave of entrepreneurs that are conscious entrepreneurs, and they
Hmm.
gauge success not just by the bottom dollar, but the impact and the difference that they're making. So
Hmm.
can we go there with the conversation for a little bit?
Sure. What do
What
you want to address?
would you say that would you let's first start with, would you consider yourself a conscious entrepreneur?
I guess.
You're like, based on that distinction, I guess.
No, I'm like just a greedy moron, who doesn't know what he's doing. No, so I've always been an entrepreneur. I had, like I said, I had a marketing and design business, which was a service business that, I was trained as a fine artist, and I grew up wanting to be a filmmaker. There were a number of years when I wasn't, and I just thought something was wrong. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And like I said, at 8 or 10 years old, if you'd asked me what I would be doing, it would be what I'm doing right now. So that's kind of exciting. And you want to make a difference in people's life. I mean, we have lots of horror movies and lots of murder mysteries, but you want to inspire people so that they feel like there's more to life out there, that life is worth living, that there are problems that are worth overcoming. And right now it's such a difficult time. People get just negative and pessimistic, and I'm the eternal optimist. I'm always feeling like, as scary as things have been in the last couple of years, uh, I still feel like uh, that love and good will prevail.
Hmm. That's beautiful.
And that's my story. I'm going to be sticking to that one.
So you mentioned like one of the things that really piqued my interest as I was listening to you share in another community that we're a part of.
Mhm.
Um, you mentioned this idea of being an ambassador, and when I heard that, I was like, that is such a vision of how one person can impact making a difference in the world. So let can we I'd love to hear your take on, what is this concept of creating ambassadors?
Well, there's ambassadors for a lot of bad news right now. And, there's a lot of things, there are a lot of things that are being promoted that are, I'm going to say, evil right now. We're here, we're among friends. We can say that there's a lot of problems. I mean, look at what's happening with our planet, with climate change, the fires that happened in Australia and California, and the storms, and the ice melting at a rapid pace. So we can get pessimistic about it or be angry about it, or we can decide to do something that could make a difference, something that includes people, that says we're all part of the same weave, the same woven uh, fabric that holds the planet together, and we're all interconnected. What we do here in America affects people from around the world, and everyone has an opportunity to make a difference. The one thing that I learned from my fundraising mentor was that the reason that people give is because they want to make a difference, and they have a legacy that
Yeah.
they want to leave behind, or they want to make the world a better place for their children and their grandchildren. And so when I say ambassador to be an ambassador for the solution, I want to be a champion, because everyone's talking about are so focused on the problem that they're not focusing in on what could be the solutions, and they're not seeing the jewel hidden in the lotus.
Yeah.
Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that when you were 50, I think it was, you said that you had almost like this self-realization when you went through your surgery that was like, I need to go do that thing that's going to make me.
So what happened for me was, so I was 56, and I had a congenital heart defect. It was something I was born with, and uh, I was in really great health, really great shape, but I had this issue, this problem, and so I had to have open heart surgery, and they open your chest up, they stop your heart, they pump the blood, and then they have to start your heart again and close you up, and you're supposed to, you know, survive that. And so it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, the night of the surgery, and I was in the ICU unit, and there was a woman, a nurse who had tubes. They were pumping stuff into me, and I couldn't sleep. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. There's all this. I said, "So, how long have you been an ICU nurse?" And she looked at me. She said, 27 years. And I said, "Well, how long have you been in this ICU unit?" She said, 25 years. I said, "Wow. So has anything changed in 25 years?" And And she stopped and she looked at me and she said, "Well, Mr. Gordon, let's take your condition, for instance." I said, "Yeah." She said, "25 years ago, you would be dying." And the idea that someone had figured out a way to save a person's life for something that would have killed them, and the chances of my being born within 25 years of this procedure becoming available that saved my life, I just felt like there's there's something more here. There's something more. There's a reason that I'm here and I need to find out what it is. And for me, the most immediate thing was, you're not making films. You're supposed to be making films. You're supposed to be making films that make a difference. And the story that I was interested in at the time was uh, the Awakening at Taos film. And I actually just pulled up all my stakes. I was in California. I had been living and had a business, and I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I was greeted by an army of strangers who supported what I was doing, and this family just came together of people who believed in the story that I was trying to get out there. And these are people I see all the time. I still see they're my extended family. So you know that's it. I almost died, and I figured if I was going to live, I needed to do something that was meaningful to me, that brought meaning to other people. And there's I, there's never been a time that I've shown the documentary that someone didn't walk up to me and say, "Wow, that was great. That was one of the best documentary films I've ever seen." And it's gratifying to me. And so so that's what I'm doing.
Do you think that you having been in that, and I'll call it like very, it's almost like something traumatic had to happen for you to take that next step, that next evolution of you?
It
Do
was a
you
near
think,
death experience.
yeah, do you think that, or let me ask it this way: what advice would you give to people who have a desire to do something meaningful as a calling, and they're not doing it?
Well, literally follow your heart, you know, and and only you know what your heart's desire is. And that's the message. Follow your heart, and and be an ambassador for the solution, not someone who's a complaining about the problems. Come up with some solutions. How are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to what were things like before this happened, and what are the consequences if we don't fix this problem? So am I losing you here?
No, no, no. I'm listening. I'm in awe of your response. Is what's
Oh,
happening for those that can't see my facial expressions. But when you say follow your heart, like it sounds like fluff, right? Like um, it sounds like a nice quote. It sounds like, but if you were to say, like, here's my wake up call to you, world, like, you're people that are not making the leap, because I always say, there's a calling God put inside of you, right? Like, for the gentleman that you were speaking of, something inside him spiritually said, it's time for you to go home, right?
mhm.
And then he had to go through the work to figure out how that was going to happen. For you, it was like this near death experience that physically had to do with your heart, that finally got you to go, like, I got to do something, and I got to go do it now. Like, if I'm going to do it, this is it.
Mhm.
And I think that people hold back out of, fear, anxiety. I want a plan. Um, so what do you think was the mechanism inside of you that finally was like, I'm going to go make this happen? Because I doubt somebody gave you a roadmap.
No, there was, well, it's interesting because um, the person, Blue Spruce standing there, I'm making the film about, is really adopted me as his little brother. And uh, I was in California and things just, I was flying out to New Mexico and I'd come for a week or two at a time and I'd work on the film and then I'd go back to California and I'd be there for 2 months or 6 months. And I realized I was never going to finish this film if I didn't just move there. And Bruce Standing Deer said to me, Mark, this place that you're in is telling you that it's time for you to leave. And he gave me permission to follow my heart. And I came out here to New Mexico. I put my whole house and the home in the storage unit, and that was 8 years ago, and it's still there. So at any point that I want to, I could move back to California and have an instant house and apartment. But it just was time for me to take a chance, to take a leap of faith. And they say that if you jump off the cliff, either you'll land on something or you'll get instructions on how to fly. And so I mean, I don't want to tell people to endanger themselves, but I think that you have to take risks and chances in your life, and it hasn't always been easy. It's been stressful, and I'm still, as an independent filmmaker of documentary films, I don't command the kind of salaries that major dramatic feature films make, but I love my life, and I'm doing what I want to do, and it's meaningful and it's absorbing. It's like being a writer with what do they have that three-dimensional chess. Making a films is being a writer, but you're a director and a producer, and there's all these different levels of that require mastery and or competence. And I sure did make a lot of mistakes, and I learned from them, and I hope not to repeat them. I hope that I'll make new mistakes.
Yeah. Well, so we'll start to wrap it up, but go ahead and I guess let people know, how can they find you? How can they contribute to your project? How can they get a hold of you?
So my website is awakeningintaos.com. My email is mark@awakeningintaos.com. We have a site right now on the Indiegogo.com. If you look up Man of Many Colors, that'll take you to our fundraising site, our crowdfunding site, and that's a good way.
Is that manofmanycolors.com?
No, I don't have a website for that yet.
Okay.
There's information about it on the awakeningintaos.com website.
Okay.
We'll have, but right now the INDIEGOGO.com. It's Standing Deer. Just do a search. Go to the film section and do a search.
I posted the link in the comments, but I'll go ahead and edit the heading later and put it there also. All right. So what type of I'm sure that there's different contribution levels. What type of, what's the range of donations people can do?
Our goal at the present time is we're raising $20,000. With the Awakening in Taos, we raised $500,000 with donations between $10 and $10,000 in a couple of major grants. So the entry level, if you want to just become part of this and be supportive, it's a $15 level, and it, you know, it 1,500, 50, I mean $15, $50, 100, 250, 500, you know, up to $5,000 or $10,000, and it's, we try to keep people included in the project. You know, I'm not sure. Right now, our goal is to get the film finished by next September so we can enter it in the Sundance Film Festival.
Okay. Love it, love it, love it. So I want to end with this question, because one of the key things that you said in one of our groups was that we were losing and missing out on wisdom that's quickly disappearing. And that's what touched me to a place that I was like, I want to help share this. I want to help open a dialogue about this.
You know, blue spruce standing deer has a lung disease. His father and his uncle both have the same illness, and it's fibroids in your lungs that create scar tissue, makes it hard to breathe. And so, but I've watched him valiantly deal with this and carry oxygen tanks and everything. He's been doing this for 15 years or so. And what's happening right now is that the Native Americans have an oral tradition that's to be handed down to the next generation. And right now, on like in the Navajo Nation, because they'll have 3 generations living in a single household, and there'll be 7 people there, it's decimating the elders. And some of them are going now with the pandemic. They're going before they have time to download their wisdom to the next generation. So part of this film is we want to be able to document some of that. Like in the first film, Tony Lujan's lines were all delivered in Tiwa, which is a very, you know, which is there's maybe 7,000 people on the planet that speak that language, if that much. So our film becomes kind of a Rosetta Stone for that. But the sacred wisdom that they have about living on the planet, walking on this earth, and not damaging it, not destroying it, not exploiting it. We need to learn that. And if we don't record or protect our native elders, we're going to be in big trouble. Looks like I'm off the air. Oh, there we go.
No, there we go. No, I wanted to bring the whole, I'm still maneuvering on the back end production of this stuff. So, so Mark, thank you so much for coming on. I know it was very last minute. I really do want to say, like, the big takeaway for me when I heard you speak was wisdom's being lost. And I love what you just said, that like generations of these elders are dying off before they can pass down the information that's been handed to them. And it ends there, right? And I'll show on camera, you know, one of the things, I don't know how to make Indian arrowheads, but I'll bring it on camera. And this is actually an issue point. And for me, I was introduced to Native American culture through my kid's father, my ex, and I was taken aback by how much I didn't know about my ancestors.
Sure.
And I thought, here is an art form that was traditionally used for hunting and gathering that's being lost. And here is, no offense, but here is a white man who has mastered the art of making issue points and has been published in archaeological journals, and has gone and done some research up in Berkeley and made all these videos, and he's known as like one of the youngest flint knappers. And a part of me was like, why isn't it someone else sharing this, right? Like, why does it have to be, and like I said, no offense, why does it have to be a white man that introduced me to this? And why does it have to be a white man that's now passing this on to the next generation? Because it's a lost art, right? So for me, like, I honor the work that you're putting forth, and I'll end with you saying, like, be part of the solution, be an ambassador for the solution. Our earth is suffering. Certain things are dying off and being lost as these beautiful elders are dying, and some of these things are dying off with them.
Yeah.
There's my spiel. I get passionate about some stuff, Mark.
No, that's good. And the question is, now the thing I do want to say is that right now there's a lot of funding that's available to Indigenous people to be writers, directors, filmmakers. I talked to the vision makers. They are a part of public broadcasting that gives grant money and commissions people to make documentaries, specifically Native Americans. And I said, well, we have a Native American producer that's coming onto the project. And she said to me, well, we don't want it to be window dressing. We want them to be actively involved in the major decisions, and and of equal value. And I took that on, and so now I'm very proud to have someone wonderful, a Native American Comanche Blackfeet producer working with us. So, you know, the thing about it is that for like American Masters, which is part of PBS, their kind of target filmmaker is a white male in my age category, and so I want to make sure that I'm of service to the Native Americans who will work on this project. I mean, I just feel like it's important for us to protect and preserve. And film is the most popular art form, and these films have shelf lives of years and decades. So maybe we can preserve that. Maybe my first film would be a Rosetta Stone for the Tiwa language, because we use it so beautifully in the film.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you for letting me, like, throw that out there, because for me, it's still like, as I'm doing these interviews, there's still that fine line of, like, I want to voice my view and my opinion, especially being a Latina who's rediscovering her roots, right? Like, I really am taking on that and wanting to gift that to my children, because I didn't have that growing up. So thank you for the work that you do, by the way.
Thank you. And the first film we did was about a woman and about women's issues. And this was someone who she was an early feminist and just a great role model for women today. And in 1917, she was dealing with issues that women are dealing that they're dealing with today. So I went to a panel on filmmaking with a variety of independent filmmakers. Some of them were Native Americans. And I was talking about this film, about this. She says, "Why are you making a film about this white woman?" She said, "You're not a woman." And I said, I think it's been done before.
Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing me to have that space and being so generous with your listening and your time. I would
Thank
love
you.
to have your partner producer come on one of these nights. We should definitely coordinate that.
I'm
And
sure she did. We just did an interview for the Filmmakers Success group that Joanne Butcher has. She runs that. She's in that meeting
yes,
that
yes,
yeah,
yes,
and
yes.
she's great at sales. She's wonderful. But we just did an interview for her, and Jane's fascinating. She's great. You'd love to have her.
Yeah, let's definitely coordinate that. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Let me see if I can maneuver switching screens here. All right, so thank you guys for those of you that watched to the end. Tonight we had a special guest on Late Night with Chaya, and this conversation went every which way. But at the end of the day, my biggest message in what I'm hearing inside of this is, look, if you're out to make a lasting difference, like something that's going to last across time, right? And you want to contribute to preserving a culture, but also making a difference in the world, like here's your opportunity. Become an ambassador of the solution and not necessarily just look at a problem. And that was it. Like that's the big message that I can say tonight. Was left in my heart, and we want to, as best as possible, preserve wisdom through the ages. So there's a couple of links below, my friends. You can contribute to this cause for as little as $15, and there's other ranges. There's also an Indiegogo link. And until next time, lots of kisses. If it's the first time you're tuning in, my name is Chaya Lopez. I'm a mom, healer, and entrepreneur. And we had our wonderful guest, Mr. Mark. So let's just wave goodbye, and I'll end the broadcast.